Hi, and welcome back to the YOUnify podcast. My name is Brandyn Keating. I am the CEO and co-founder of YOUnify, a nonprofit helping you flourish and thrive. And I'm also the host of our podcast. I'm incredibly excited today to be welcoming Dr. Verónica Fernández, who is not only one of the most brilliant and accomplished people I know, but also one of the kindest and most humble. She is a professor, and I'm going to probably have to read my notes because there's a lot happening here in Verónica's background and accomplishments, but she is a professor at Universidad Francisco de Vitoria and the founder and director of its Virtue and Values Education Center. She is an expert in education with over 30 years of experience in the field. She's a former school principal and has led teacher training and leadership programs nationally and internationally. Her teaching and research focus on educational leadership and virtue ethics applied to education. She's the author and editor of several papers and books, including Virtues and Values Education in Schools, a virtue-based model of leadership education and character education in Europe, among others. She co-directs the Tepache Research Project, advises the Leading with Character program, and serves as vice president of the European Character and Virtue Association. And she is one of the contributors to the Leadership for Flourishing book. Verónica, welcome. I'm so delighted to have you here. Would love to hear, there's so much that you've accomplished. Would love to learn just a little bit more about you as a person before we dig into your professional life. Could you share a little bit about what young Verónica was like and how you came to be interested in this field of virtue and character ethics in education and leadership for flourishing?
Yes, thanks so much, Brandyn, and thanks so much for the opportunity to be here with you and to share a little bit about what we have been doing. But, your question brings me back, to my childhood.
Yeah.
Because I think who I am today comes from two things I learned very early in my youth. It comes from a deep sense of responsibility and really a real fascination with people, with their inner life, their growth, their struggles.
Yeah.
I love people, but since I was really, really young. And for me, it was always a deep desire to help people to become better, to be better, because I saw I would become also better through them. So that drew me into education. And when I began working in schools, I quickly saw that something was really missing.
Yeah.
We talk a deal about academic success, but not enough about moral formation, about flourishing. The focus was on what students should do and not who they were becoming. And for me, it was like really a concern because when I was, younger, my desire was to help people becoming. And when I was studying, education was about becoming, but suddenly I started to see that everything was, being so narrow now. And I saw also how teachers who are absolutely central often lack the support, the formation, moral authority they needed to guide students well to this flourishing because they were not even flourishing. So that experience really marked me. I felt I had to do something, even if it was only my small grain of wheat or a drop in the ocean. So that desire to form people, to support teachers, and to place character at the heart of education eventually led me into leadership, into virtue ethics, and that has become the thread of my whole journey. So helping people become who they are meant to be.
Amazing. So it sounds like you're really focusing on the whole human being and helping people, young people, reach their full potential and helping the teachers that serve them support them reaching their full potential. Is that right?
Yeah, exactly. And that's something that it's at the core in my heart to do that.
Amazing. So What would somebody perhaps who knows you through your professional life be surprised by? Do you have a secret talent or a hobby or some sort of thing that would be surprising to people who know you through your professional life?
Well, I don't know if this is something about my professional life, but one thing that might surprise people is that I'm actually very short, barely a meter and a half meters. So people who meet me online first often imagine I'm taller, perhaps because I talk about leadership or
Yeah.
virtue with such intensity. And another thing, I'm Mexican, although I've been living in Spain for more than 24 years.
Mm-hmm.
And I have lived in the States, in Chile, in Mexico, in Italy. So I'm a worldwide people. I'm considered a citizen of the world. So, and being from Mexico and living in Spain for such a long time, I carry both cultures inside me, which has shaped the way I see
Beautiful.
people, education, and community. So I think this is part of who am I, citizen of the world.
Beautiful. Yes, your essence is large if your physicality is small. um, So one of the things, of course, as you know, we in YOUnify and on the podcast talk a lot about flourishing and leadership for flourishing. And one of the things I like to ask everyone is just about maybe something that you're challenged by when it comes to your own flourishing right now and something that's helping you flourish and thrive personally.
Yeah, amazing. Thank you. And I think this is a great question. And it's great sharing because sometimes we think people could be perfect and it's not like that, And I think struggle makes us grow and makes us better person. But one thing I struggle with now is protecting a little bit my interior space because I tend to take on too much
Yes.
project responsibilities, people's needs. And when I don't have enough quiet time or time to work on my own, I feel less anchored, less able to be present to others. So I'm still learning to set boundaries that allow me to flourish so that I can help others flourish. And what is helping me to flourish is cultivating small daily rituals of
Yes.
presence and gratitude. So even 5-10 minutes of silence in the morning or a walk without my phone, that changes how I show up in the world or how I show up to others. And it reconnects me to what really matters.
Yeah, I think so many of us who are called to serve others often accidentally stretch ourselves too thin. And it's so important to remember that we can't help others if we're not whole ourselves. So that's a really wonderful reminder for everyone, I think, to focus in on making sure, we have our own, what do they call it? The air mask, put your own air mask on for our oxygen mask on first before you try to help others metaphorically. Fantastic. So let's talk a little bit about your chapter. What motivated you to write about virtues as the core of leadership for flourishing?
Oh, well, we have been working a lot with the community, but just to say that this is not a chapter written on my own. It's a shared chapter with Ivan Dubmer, who is a really good colleague, and so we really get along very well. So this chapter grew out of a deep concern that much of contemporary leadership literature focuses on skills, performance, techniques, while leaving aside the most fundamental question: what kind of person must a leader become in order to genuinely contribute to the flourishing of others? So this was a question, we see in the world, because for decades, leadership has been treated as something more instrumental, behaviors to optimize, competences to acquire, or styles to apply. But this approach cannot answer the questions I had, the moral, the anthropological question at the heart of leadership. What is the leader aiming at? Why should others trust in this person? How do we ensure leadership is used for good and not for manipulation, control, or self-promotion? We see this on our daily basis. So in our chapter, Ivan and I argue that leadership requires how would I say, like a moral core,
Yes.
and that core is virtue. Virtue understood as stable dispositions oriented toward human flourishing. So techniques without virtue are dangerous, and virtues without techniques become ineffective. So we wanted to bridge the gap.
Oh, I
Precisely.
love that. Yeah, making sure that both are present. And I think, to your point, about the current moment, and maybe I think a lot of people are concerned about, maybe even seeing a crisis of leadership right now when they look at some of our political leadership and our leadership across institutions. And I'm wondering if you're thinking that virtues matter now more than ever, and if so, why that is, and so how can that help us?
Yes, Brandyn, like you're right. Like we're living in a moment, maybe you agree or not, but I think we're living a moment of profound moral and social fragmentation.
Well said.
Leaders today operate in environments marked by uncertainty, political polarization, as you say, technological acceleration, a crisis of trust across institutions, and we could name so many, many more things. And virtues, they offer anchoring, discernment, direction. They allow leaders to sort through complexity, resist moral emotivism, orient their action towards the common good. And we have lost, track about the common good, not just what benefits me, but about what benefits we as a society and as a whole. So we can say that virtues help leaders respond with clarity, with humanity, with purpose, in a world that desperately needs moral responsibility and not only technical expertise.
Clarity, humanity, and purpose. That's quite a powerful trifecta. And, in the chapter of the Leadership for Flourishing book, you describe leadership for flourishing almost as a meta virtue. Can you explain a little bit more about what you mean by that?
Yeah, thank you. I knew you maybe will ask for that because it's like we need to explain it, and maybe when you read the book, it's not very clear. We have written also an article, and it's very much explaining other. But in our work, especially within the what we call the leadership of positive action model, we are that leadership is not simply something one does, but a way of being. It is a stable inclination toward the good of others manifested through understanding reality accurately, cultivating meaningful relationships, and committing oneself to a purposeful action. So, this is why we call leadership for flourishing like a meta virtue. It does not replace the cardinal virtues, but rather integrates and activates them in service of others. To understand reality accurately, you need prudence. To cultivate meaningful relationships, you need justice. Committing oneself to purposeful action, you need courage and temperance. So leadership activates, all that. A leader cannot flourish alone. So, but by definition, leadership, it's an interpersonal, a free, intentional act that is directed towards shared goals. It's not just to attain something just for myself, but towards a shared goals. That's how we understand leadership in the book. So the leader who consistently acts toward the flourishing of persons and communities is exhibiting a profound moral disposition. So this is like meta virtue, putting all this and enacting all this.
So, if I'm sort of like an everyday person listening to this, and I'm thinking, well, this makes sense that we would want to center character and virtues in leadership. How could I think about approaching that in my day-to-day life? And is this sort of leadership something that anybody can practice, regardless of whether they have a leadership title or a role that's sort of official?
Exactly, Brandyn. This is something like, because we all are called to be leaders, and we lead in some moments and maybe not in another. Like depends in the moment where we are. So we are all called to develop, the leadership the leader that is within us. So it shifts every day, like where we are in a position. So instead of asking what skills should a leader learn to be more effective, I think something that helps a lot is to ask what kind of person should a leader become. So what kind of person do I want to become now, in this moment, with this person, in this situation? So it moves leadership development toward my character formation, towards habituated practice, the little things we do in our everyday life. Like for me, it's so important to pay special attention to the little things, because we think we're going to be great leaders in great situations when we have great opportunities. But if you haven't, habituate yourself in the little things, you will not be able to do those little things great when the opportunity comes. Another important thing is reflective accompaniment, like having people beside you to accompany you and to talk to you about how to become a better person, and to be aware also of why am I doing this, your intention. Why do I do what I do? So all these little things require time, relationship, communities, but we all have this in our daily life. We're constantly with relations. We live in communities, and to become a leader is not just a matter of having workshops. It is a lot. Yeah, sometimes it's like, you see books of how to become the best leader.
Right.
But it's also a lifelong project that includes, the way you want to respond to life, response to, to the moral exemplars you are surrounded, opportunities for real practice in your daily little life, being even a mother, you are in a way a leader. You have certain moral authority to your kids or in your job, or or the way you also obey little things, because we have to learn to lead but also to be led by others. So, and that's very important.
Yeah, beautiful. So thinking about leadership, not as something we go and do in a certain role for a period of hours a day, but how we are living our daily lives, who are we becoming, how we are in relationship with others. And prudence, or practical wisdom, plays a really central role in your Leadership for Flourishing chapter. How do you help emerging leaders develop that kind of discernment?
Good question, Brandyn. Developing prudence is also a slow, relational, and deeply personal process. It cannot be taught the way we teach a technique. Prudence must be cultivated. One of the things we do in our programs, both are at our university and with our partners, is to create learning environments where students can pause, interpret their experiences, and order their intentions. That is the first step towards prudence. So, and this is very, very important, and we mentioned that a little bit in the book. So we live in a world that it's so accelerated. So we need to really to pause and to see, like, why did I do this, or why did I respond it in that way? Because this needs to be cultivated. So next time when you face that situation again, you learn to respond in a different way, or learn to interpret my experience, what happened to me in this situation with this person, being a leader and maybe having a tough conversation with somebody, then I need to go back and say, like, why did I do this? Why did I didn't say this instead of this? And we need to learn, so we use to educate our students on leadership. We use practical tools such as we call them intention setting exercises, deliberation frameworks, narrative practices, emotional awareness routines, because a prudent leader must learn to regulate not only thoughts, but also their emotions. Prudence integrates emotions, reason, and will. So, virtue does that. So you need to help them to do that, and and our students, because we dedicate ourselves a lot to educate leadership. So our students, they want to be leaders, they are.
Of course, yeah.
Yeah, and we all, I think, want to do something, but what type of leader? And you need to help them reflect because they live in such an accelerating world. They are all day long in their phones. They don't have time to disconnect. So giving them the opportunities, to have these intention setting exercises. Why am I doing this? What was the intention behind? But what we have seen is that none of this works without mentoring.
Yes.
Prudence grows when someone accompanies you, helping you to see blind spots, questions assumptions, and understands the moral weight of your choices. So the formation of prudent leaders is always relational. No one becomes wise alone. So this is also very important. And something also important for prudence, there is are also the moral exemplars or role model people whose lives illuminate what good leadership looks like. So Aristotle understood this really well. So young leaders learn not only from theories but from someone's way of being,
Seeing
from
a
their
model. Yeah.
Exactly. Their serenity, their ability to choose the good even under pressure. So that helps also to form your prudence or to become wiser because we're learning from others. We need stories, we need testimonials, we need personal encounters with virtue lived concretely. So if we want prudent leaders, we must offer them communities, mentors, practices where wisdom becomes something visible, habitable, and desirable.
So, speaking of community, you write that virtue formation requires both habits, like we were talking about before, those little daily practices. And I love that you've brought in self-reflection as well. I think that's such an important tool for leaders. So you write that virtue formation requires both habits and community. What kinds of communities best support virtuous leadership?
Your questions are really good, Martin. Well, virtues are learned through repetition, yes, but repetition within a community that embodies what is good. So human beings grow in virtue when they inhabit environments that make virtue visible and viable. So, for example, we have educational institutions, so universities, well, first of all, families, and that's the main place where you can have a community where that embodies, that loves you, that embraces you, and that's a place where you can really learn virtue. It's the first and main place, but sometimes, families are so distressful or in fragmentation or they are really challenged. So the educational institutions come in a subsidiary way. They will never replace what families are meant to do. But schools, universities, play also a crucial role here. They are also formative spaces where young adults are asking profound questions about identity, purpose, vocation. And when educational institutions intentionally cultivate habits of reflection, dialogue, service, responsibility, etc., they become fertile grounds for virtue formation. We also need mentoring ecosystems because formation cannot happen through curriculum alone. Okay? Mentoring ecosystems, I mean professors, coaches, residence halls, tutors, peer groups, all working together. Students need exemplars in diverse roles so that they can see virtue from multiple angles: intellectual, relational, affective. And then also, I may say, also that organizations that have moral cultures also matters. They are also place where we can grow in virtue because we're places with integrity, and there are so many, and I know some people like Joan, that she also wrote a chapter in the book. She has been working about workplaces, workplaces with integrity, with clear moral purpose, and cultures of trust help leaders sustain virtuous habits over time. So a person might acquire virtues individually, but whether those virtues endure depends on the moral ecology around them. A community that supports virtue is one where people hold one another accountable, where you celebrate the good and encourage growth. So, in short, I can say that virtuous leaders are always formed in virtuous communities.
Beautiful.
You know?
And community is certainly something we care a lot about here in YOUnify. And I want to let everybody watching and listening know that you are invited to be part of our YOUnify community. We build chapters in communities all over the country, which are places where you can go to meet other folks who are working on helping communities, individuals, each other flourish and thrive. And you'll find the links below to check out our website, to order the book, Leadership for Flourishing, and also to find out more about our Write the Future campaign, which is where we're getting together in local communities all over the country to imagine what the hopeful future can look like and take action on it. And of course, that is connected to our campaign around the Global Flourishing Goals, which you can learn more about in the links as well. And also, we will have the opportunity for you to connect with Verónica in the links below if you're looking at the YouTube or any of the online versions. So we want to make sure that that people can follow up with you, Verónica, if they have been inspired, which I'm sure they have, by what you've shared. And if you'd like to take an action right now that can help others flourish and thrive, we really invite you to click the like button, click the subscribe button. That just helps this information get to more people and hopefully helps more folks flourish and thrive. So Verónica, our time has absolutely flown by, but I want to wrap us up with one question, which is for folks watching who've been inspired by what you've shared, what's just one thing they could do, maybe something simple in their daily lives if they want to maybe cultivate virtuous leadership, leadership for flourishing in this character and virtue-centered way that you've described within themselves, within their own community, or within their organization?
Thanks, Brandyn. Well, something that just came to my mind while I was talking to you is something very simple. Talk to one person, every single day with full attention.
Ooh.
No fun, rushing, no thinking of the next thing, just presence. When people feel seen, even for 2 minutes, something in them flourishes and something in us does too.
Yeah, so true. And is there anything coming up for you that you would like to share with folks, or something that folks can do to connect with your work before we close here?
Thank you. Well, if you'd like to connect with our work on virtues and leadership, you can visit our webpage. And also you can follow me in LinkedIn because I put everything there. And well, they are in Spanish, but we're doing some workshops or online sessions. But we will have also some in English or Spanish, and collaborate with us. If you're part of a school, a university, organization wanting to bring virtue-based leadership into your community. So just text me, write an email, and we can be on board.
Beautiful. So again, we will put all those links below. And Verónica, thank you so much for joining us today. It's been an absolute pleasure to talk with you, and look forward to further collaboration.
No, thanks to you, Brandyn, and it has been great being with you. Thanks so much.
Of course.
Looking forward for more collaboration with YOUnify. You are doing an amazing work. Thank you.